We continue now at the top of Daf Tesam and Beis Mesechet Shevuos. This is Shavuos Daf 9b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara was discussing the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah said that when it comes to the Seirei Rashi Chodashim and the Seirim that are on the Regalim, so those atone, those provide a kapara for a situation of Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashav, where there was no yediyah whatsoever, there was no knowledge whatsoever, not in the beginning and not at the end. And the Gemara said, well, where's the source? What is the source for Rabbi Yehuda? And so the Gemara said, when it comes to the Seirei Rashi Chodashim, the source is that the pasuk says, Lachatos LaHashem, and also we learn out in terms of the specifics of it. How do we know that it's specifically for Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashav? So that we learn out from the Seirei Chutz by Yom HaKippurim, the Sar Hanasa B'Chutz on Yom Kippur, that's at a Zman Kavua, and again, that is Mechaper by Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashav. So too over here by the Seirei Rashi Chodashim, we're going to say they're Mechaper by Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashav, again, specifically in the scenario where there's no yediyah whatsoever. And so the Gemara in the previous Amud asked, that explains Seirei Rashi Chodashim. What about the Seirim on the Regalim? What's the source for that? And the Gemara explained that you can't really learn the Seirim of the Regalim from Rosh Chodesh or from Yom Kippur because each of those have something unique. On Rosh Chodesh, that's Tadir, that's frequent, more frequent than the Regalim. And when it comes to Yom Kippur in general provides a lot of kapara, and so therefore you can't learn out. And the Gemara now continues and says, maybe you're going to say, what do you mean? That should not prevent us from learning it out, because Hagamrin on Rosh Chodesh midi Yom HaKippurim, didn't we learn Rosh Chodesh from Yom Kippur? V'lo Parchinam, we didn't ask any questions over there. Rosh Chodesh does not have the strength of kapara of Yom Kippur, and yet we did learn out Rosh Chodesh from Yom Kippur. The Gemara says, no, you can't say that. Hasam over there, kapara michtav ksiva. At least you had kapara mentioned when it came to Rosh Chodesh. As we just said, it says L'chatos LaHashem. As Rashi explains, Hasam kapara begufe ksiv. L'chatos LaHashem. It says L'chatos LaHashem. So we know there's a kapara. Perish l'chakasa bo kapara al chet she'eno yodua. The pasuk is saying there's a kapara in a sin that's not known. Umashma dechol chatoim she'enim yoduim b'mashma. And it's actually mashma all chatoim that are not known. And so then we know that there's a kapara. Again, kapara michtav ksiva. Giluye milsa bi'almahu. Then what we're learning from the Sor Hanasa B'Chutz on Yom HaKippurim is just revealing to us the details. What are the details? The details are that it's specifically for the Aveir of Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashav. Aval hacha, but over here, when it comes to the Seirim of the Regalim, Ikol Meimar Kula Milsa Lo Gamrina. So there already we don't have any psukim. You want to learn the entire thing from Rosh Chodesh or Yom Kippur, and there where we have a refutation, so maybe you say you don't learn the entire thing because the Seirim of the Regalim are different than Rosh Chodesh, and they're different than the Sar Hanasa B'Chutz and Yom HaKippurim. And so the Gemara continues and says, Ella rather, Kediyamar Reb Chama b'Reb Chanina. It's like Reb Chama b'Reb Chanina said in a different context, Soyer u'seir. He darshans from the extra vav in the word seir. It could have just said without a vav, instead it says with a vav. Hachanami, so too over here, seir u'seir, the fact that it has that vav, again by the seirim of the regalim, so that tells us, Ve'iskish seirei regalim l'seirei Rashi Chodashim. It tells us to make a comparison between the seirei regalim and the seirei Rashi Chodashim. Ma seirei Rashi Chodashim just like the Seirei Rashi Chodashim, they only provide a kapara when there's no yediyah whatsoever, not in the beginning or the end. Af Seirei HaRegalim, so too by the Regalim, those goats, Einon Mechaper Ela Al She'ein Bo Yediyah Lo B'Tchila V'Lo B'Sof. They only provide a kapara if there's no knowledge in the beginning or the end. There's no knowledge whatsoever. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. They had the following question: Ki Omer Rabbi Yehuda al She'ein Bo Yediyah. When Rabbi Yehuda said again that there's this kapara, the Seirei Rashi Chodashim, the Seirei Regalim provide a kapara when there's no knowledge whatsoever. Lo B'Tchila V'Lo B'Sof. There's no knowledge in the beginning or the end. Again by Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashav. So Hani Mila B'Chet She'ein Sofa Livada. Is that only by a sin which no one is ever going to know about? Meaning there was no one else that was present that was aware that this avera took place. Aval Chet Sofa Livada. But let's say you have a sin which is going to become known. There was someone present that actually saw what happened. So then Kamisha Yesh Yediyah B'Sof Dami. Maybe that's already as if there was Yediyah at the end because there's someone that has that knowledge. Usar Hanasa B'Chutz v'Yom HaKippur Mechaper. So maybe in such a situation it's actually the Sar Hanasa B'Chutz and Yom Kippur which provide that kapara. Odilmor, maybe Afilu Chetcha Sofa Livada, even a sin which in the end it will become known, but Hashtami Chetcha Ein Makir Bo Ela Hashem Karina Bey. Nevertheless, right now, this is a sin that only Hashem knows about, and so therefore maybe Rabbi Yehuda would say that's considered that there's no knowledge, and we would say that the Seirei Rashi Chodashim and the Seirei Regalim provide the kapara. And the Gemara says, Tashma, come and hear the following proof, Tanya, because we learned in a Brisa, Al she'ein bo yediyah lo b'tchila v'lo b'sof, if there's no knowledge in the beginning or the end, v'chet shesofo livada, it says explicitly in this Brisa, a sin that in the end will be known, but right now it's not known. Se'irei haragolim u'se'irei Rosh Chodashim, mechaprim, the goats of the regalim and the goats of Rosh Chodesh, they provide the kapara, divrei Rabbi Yehuda. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, Se'irei haragolim mechaper, and this is Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah. The Se'irei haragolim provide this kapara that we're discussing again when there's no yediyah. Avolo Se'irei Rosh Chodashim, but this is not true of the Se'irei man Rosh Chodesh. Again, Rabbi Shimon says, as we're about to see in the Gemara, that the soir of Rosh Chodesh specifically is going to provide a kapara when the piece of meat has the tumah. Let's say you have a piece of Kodesh meat, that's tameh, and a pure person eats it. That's what you need the Se'irei Rosh Chodashim for. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Lazar, Amar Rabbi Oshia. Rabbi Lazar says that Rabbi Oshia says, my time made to Rabbi Shimon. What's the reason of Rabbi Shimon? Amar Kratz, because the pasuk says, V'oso nasan lochem loses es avon ha'eda. It says this is given to you to carry the burden of the sin of the congregation. V'hai kra b'sor de Rosh Chodesh. Ksiv, this pasuk is written about the sword of Rosh Chodesh. V'yolif avon mitzitz, and we make a gzer shava. It says avon by the tzitz, and the tzitz also is talking about a situation that it provides a kapara where the basar is tameh. There it's not talking about a pure person eating the basar. It's talking about the basar going on the mizbeach. But nevertheless, nemar kan avon v'nemar lahalon avon. It says over here the word avon. It says over there the word avon. Ma'alahalon tomas basar. Just like by the tzitz, we're talking about where the meat is impure. Afkan tomas basar. So too over here, we're talking where the meat is impure. That's what the Sirei Rosh Chodashim is for. The Gemara says, Ima lahalon olin, afkan olin. But again, if over there by the tzitz we're talking about where it goes on the mizbeach, the tamei piece of meat, maybe over here also we're talking on the mizbeach. Who says we're talking when someone who's pure eats it? And the Gemara says, no, avon ha'eda ksiv, but it's written avon ha'eda. It says laseis es avon ha'eda, and so therefore that's a sin of the community, of the congregation. It's not talking about going on the mizbeach. Again, it's talking about someone who eats this tamei piece of meat. The Gemara says, michti migmar gamri mehadadi. Now let us see if they're learned from one another. If we're learning the so'ir Rosh Chodesh, that kapara, from the kapara of the tzitz. So if that's the case, so nechaper de Rosh Chodesh adidei v'adid tzitz. Let Rosh Chodesh provide a kapara for its scenario and the scenario of the tzitz, meaning those that are on the mizbeach. And nafkamina lehecha de nishbar hatzitz. The nafkamina would be, let's say the tzitz breaks, so now you could use the soir of Rosh Chodesh. And the Gemara says to that, Amar Kran, no, you can't say that because the pasuk says avon. It says the sin avon echad hu nosei vein nosei beis avonos. It's only able to carry one sin, the soir of Rosh Chodesh. It's not able to carry two sins. Again, that pasuk lo seisas avon ha'eda, written by the Sirei Rosh Chodashim. The Gemara asks in the other direction of an echaper tzitz adidei va'ad Rosh Chodesh. Well, let's say that tzitz is able to provide kapara in both scenarios, whether on the mizbeach or the scenario of the Sirei Rosh Chodashim when someone eats the tamei meat. Nafkamina, and the nafkamina would be, the difference would be latuma de'ira bein zel lazel. Let's say there's tumah that happens in between. You have some tumah that happens after Rosh Chodesh already, and now the tzitz will be able to take care of that and provide the kapara for that. And to that the Gemara says, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, this is the same pasuk, it says osa. Again, v'osa nasan lochem loses es avon ha'eda. Osa no se avon ve'in acheres no se avon. It's able to carry this particular sin, but no other thing. That tzitz is not able to carry the sin that is being carried by the Se'irei Rosh Chodashim. So that's why we're not going to say that the tzitz is mechaper in the scenario of the Se'irei Rosh Chodashim, which again is a situation of a person eating the meat that is tamei. Rav Ashi says, Ksiv hacha avon ha'eda. It says over here, avon ha'eda. It means eda velo kachim. It means to say the avon ha'eda and not kachim. It's specifically talking about the avon ha'eda, not something that's going to go on the mizbeach. V'hasam ksiv, and over there it's written, meaning over there by the tzitz, it says avon hakadoshim. It says avon hakadoshim. So therefore we understand kadoshim velo eda the other way around, that it's only going to be mechaper by kadoshim, only going to be mechaper by situations where it's on the mizbeach, but not by eda, not by situations where it's eaten by someone who's tar. And the Gemara continues, Eshkechon Se'irei Rosh Chodashim the mechapri al tahar sha'achal es hatami. So now we have a source that by Se'irei Rosh Chodashim they provide a kapara by someone who's tar, who eats something tamei. And again, this is all within the shita of Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah. Se'irei regalim the mechapri. Now, what about the source according to Rabbi Shimon for Se'irei regalim, the goats of the holidays? How do we know that they're mechaper al she'in bo yediyah lo b'tchila v'lo b'sof? How do we know they're mechaper in a situation of Tamas Mikdash v'Kadashav where there's no knowledge in the beginning or the end, no knowledge whatsoever? Minolan, from where do we know where is the source? And the Gemara says to that, Kido Amar Reb Chama Rabbi Chanina, it's like Reb Chama Rabbi Chanina says, Seir u Seir. Again, it's from the Vav, that was in a different context, but Hachanami Seir u Seir. Here also we're going to learn from the Vav. And Rashi explains, Rav Ashi Amar, Rav Ashi says, again, Rav Ashi said in the Gemara, that we learn it says Avon ha'eda, Eda velo Kachim. We also learn from Avon ha'kadashim, Kachim velo Eda. And Rashi explains, Hey Yisera, we're actually darshaning here the extra Hey in both of these words, De ha'eda u de Kachim. It says again, Avon ha'eda with a Hey. It says also by Kadashim, Avon ha'kadashim with the extra Hey. Darish l'miyuta, we're darshaning that as an exclusion. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Amud Aleph.